Hi, it's the Mr. Curry Experience Online, and this is 20th Century 2 Week in Review. Hi, my little sophomores. I hope you're enjoying your 4-day weekend. So what did we look at last week in our class? Well, we looked at a couple of big ideas, and then, of course, we took our little test. More on that in a minute. But what were the things that we looked at this weekend? What does that mean for everything we've been looking at so far this year? Well, we took a step back to take a look at the actual nature of the debate between what was shaping up to be between the East and the West, capitalism and communism. The idea of a society and whether or not it should be run through private ownership of property and the means of production, or if it should be collective ownership of those forces, be it land, labor, or capital. In the United States, we've had a hate-hate affair with communism. It stems all the way back to our fears of Soviet revolution in the 1920s. We didn't talk about that, but if you decided to do a little bit of digging, you'd come across the Red Scare that happened in 1920. Last year, in your freshman year, you may remember a gent by the name of Palmer who arrested and deported a fair number of immigrants on fears that they were radicals, that they were anarchists, they were socialists, and they were going to undo our system. And that makes sense in the 1920s when there was an awful lot of money floating around and an awful lot of consumption floating around. But then things changed in the 1930s with the Great Depression. Americans started to live in scarcity. There wasn't a lot to buy and there wasn't a lot of money to have. But they worked through it as best they could until the start of the war. Now, the war changed things for most Americans in the sense that now, all of a sudden, Americans had work and they had money. But since the factories were in full-scale war production, they didn't have a lot of things to actually buy. Rationing was the order of the day. And so you had to make do with a scarcity of a completely different variety. So when the war was over and factories began to transition back into domestic consumption production, if you will, all of a sudden Americans had money and now things to buy. And the last thing Americans needed was a communist revolution taking away all of that money and taking away all that property that money could buy. It's safe to say that most Americans resisted communism after the war. The other thing that we looked at this week was a kind of a key document and an understanding in a certain way why things are today, why things are the way they are today. And that's National Security Council Report 68, NSC-68 for short. And this document that we took a look at was very clear about certain things. One, that the communist threat was a military threat, and that there must be no restraint on that military spending in order to resist that communist influence. So, budgetary constraints that handle certain spending in the government existed, while NSC-68 recommended there be no budgetary constraints on military spending. Sounds familiar to today, I suppose. You could probably draw a straight line from our military-industrial complex today all the way back to NSC-68. It's no wonder Eisenhower warned us about it, but we'll have to get to him this up-and-coming week. I guess that brings us up to what we're going to be taking a look at this week. We have to, of course, check out how we did on our tests. Please remember that you can retake those. If you're not pleased with your score, you're going to have to go and study. You're going to have to get the information under your belt. Feel free to work with me during lunch or after school for that, so that you can get the information in your head. And when you have the information in your head, you get the score that reflects that you have the information in your head. So we're going to go over that quiz. And then we're going to spend this week checking out how the Cold War unfolded at home. Now, I did show you that very cool video that was shown in high school classrooms on despotism. And that's what we're going to pick up this week. We're going to talk about despotism in the United States today. Do those measures all the way back in 1945 still work today? And can we predict to what extent despotism has taken root in America today? Are we on the same sort of march that, say, was present in the 1920s in Germany? Or do we have enough pushback, enough systems in place to make certain that we maintain a democracy? We'll take a look at how people were afraid of communists in the United States at home, and we'll look at certain politicians who took advantage of that. And we have a new president, President Eisenhower. And what we'll do with him is compare him to Truman. How did they fight the Cold War abroad? And how did they handle communism and the fears of it at home? So it's going to shape up to be a really cool week. It'll be a short week, obviously. We're going to lose Wednesday to that PSAT day. So I don't know how much of this we're going to get to this week, because PSAT day is, I think, going to be normal schedule after lunch. But I don't know to what extent we're going to be ready to tackle any of that after you guys have been in a test for 3 hours. I don't know. We'll have to kind of play it by ear. We may have to do something less strenuous on that Wednesday just so that you guys can get through the day in one piece. But like I said, we'll evaluate that when we get there. So, thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment boxes below. In the description box below are the various links to the documents that we reviewed this week in class. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in class this week. Bye.